What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online broadcast in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care for fathers and men. So it's the only online show in the world for fathers and men that's sponsored by Dove Men Care, and also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And one other thing I do, amongst other things, I'm the board chairman of an organization called the Global Food and Drink Initiative, and their purpose is to showcase Blacks in the diaspora that are doing it all in food, wine, and travel. We always like to have new friends on the show, and this gentleman has been a friend indirectly for many years because I've been how can I say? I don't say a fan. I guess a fan and an admirer in a respectful way for many years. Now, when people ask me, like, how have you become where you've become? This gentleman's one reason why, and especially the company he's affiliated with is another reason why. Libsyn. Oh, so many people get into podcasting these days, and people say, what host do you use for your podcasting? Well, I've been a Libsyn supporter, user, fan since 2011. And this gentleman who I'm bringing on here, he's been with Libsyn a few years. He wasn't always with Libsyn, but he's been a podcast, respectfully, veteran. And I call him a guru. And I hope he doesn't mind being called a guru. So I'm going to read a quick bio, and then we're going to introduce him to our digital stage. Rob Greenlee is the VP of Content and Partnerships at Libsyn, current founding Board of Governor member and former chairperson of the Podcast Academy, and is a well-known evangelist of the podcasting industry, and was inducted in the Academy of Podcasters Hall of Fame in 2017. Yes, well-deserved. Formerly, he served as VP Podcast Relations at Voxnext, Spreaker, and Head of Partnerships and Head of Content. So we only got up for a little bit amount of time. We could go further into his bio. We're just going to bring him on. Rob, how are you today?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you so much, Dr. Vibe, for bringing me on your show. It's awesome.
Well,
thank you.
I feel humbled because I'm probably one of the few platforms in the world that have had now 3 representatives from Libsyn on, because a number of years ago I had Rob on, and I also had LSYN on. So I'm 3 times blessed. And believe it or not, especially their broadcasts were some of the highest still to date downloads I've ever had in my journey.
Well, they're both terrific people, and they've been around the medium a long time, like I have too. So, you know, I feel lucky and fortunate to be able to work with those two and be a part of the same company that they're working in. Yeah,
absolutely. Just a little short background on yourself in the industry wise, because again, I could have read your whole bio, but I know time permitting doesn't happen. So you could probably give the short bio background quicker than I can.
Yeah, I started podcasting really back in 2004. I had a nationally syndicated radio show that I started in 1999. So I was starting to distribute my radio show as an MP3 download off my website back in like 99, 2000. So the evolution of this was kind of a natural thing for me. Podcasting, there were early versions or early types of podcasting that was being done by companies like Microsoft and things like that before podcasting started. So I was involved in a lot of those more proprietary platforms that were doing synchronization to like Pocket PC devices and those kind of things. So I've been working in the medium since actually even before podcasting. So for me at the time, I was doing a radio show. For me, it was just another spoke of my distribution wheel, you know, of things, of places and ways that I was making my show available. And then I started helping other people podcast and live stream and getting involved in taking their audio out and making it available as a digital consumption kind of a venue for them. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the audio shows back then it was in the early days of audiobooks. Audible had started, and they were making audiobooks available for an MP3 player of sorts in the early days. And then more and more audio was making it into the digital world. And back in those days, bandwidth was very constrained. So it's not like today, you know, we couldn't do anything like we're doing right now.
Absolutely.
Back in those days.
Absolutely.
So things have really, really accelerated. So I started helping other people, and that's really a key thread through my whole background is I was doing it, and then I was helping other people do the same thing. So I built my own hosting platform, not unlike what Libsyn had, but I was actually doing live streaming and things like that, more streaming distribution at that time, just prior to Libsyn forming, to help radio shows get their shows out there. And so slowly evolved away from having my own servers and adminning my own, kind of hosting platform, and started working for other platform companies that were building like mobile apps for mobile phones, actually as far back as 2005. So I was working on a platform that was making audio podcasts available on in the early days of smartphones. They were actually, I call them dumb phones back then. They were like razor phones, things like that were really rudimentary around audio consumption. So the bandwidth really wasn't there yet. But over time, that was starting to develop. There was data plans that were starting to be made available to these more simple phones, and then Nokia started getting into it, and they started making what would be called a smartphone. And then Windows started doing it, and then in 2007, the iPhone launched. And so that really, really accelerated everything. And then that made an opportunity for me to go to work for Microsoft back in about 2007 timeframe to launch the content area for the Zune podcasting platform, which was part of the company of Microsoft. Back in those days, Microsoft was trying to compete with the iPod and trying to make that compete against the Apple product. And so I worked on that for about 6 years, driving podcasts into that platform. And it became the second largest podcast consumption platform during that time window behind Apple. I could never quite catch up to Apple. So it was one of those things that it was Apple was a gauntlet out there that really nobody could compete with. So, I mean, if Microsoft's $1 billion couldn't do it, I don't know if too many others could do it, but things have changed now. But so, yeah, I worked on that for a while, and then I left there to go to, I left there in 2014 to go to work for Podcast One down in Los Angeles as their chief technology officer, which was Podcast One is basically a network, a content network and an ad sales platform and a distribution platform. So we were basically doing everything at that time. And it was really aligned with syndicated radio back then. It was in the early days. The founder of Podcast One was the founder of Westwood One, which was the big nationally syndicated radio syndicator. So he's the one that created this company, and he asked me to join the company. And so I started doing, I used to fly down to LA every week for a year to work on that platform, and then left there to go to work for Spreaker. And so, it's been 4 years at Spreaker, and then now a couple of years at Libsyn doing the same thing. And through all this, I'm still podcasting. I'm doing this kind of stuff, like talking to you and still getting the word out about this medium and its growth and its potential. And it's really starting to blossom now. And it's a very exciting time for podcasting.
Excellent. And I can relate to some of your history because do you remember this thing?
Yeah, that's the blue snowball, right?
That's what I did my first podcasts on. All I had was a laptop, a Dream, and a blue snowball microphone.
Well, those are fun microphones. I can see how you got attracted to it,
Yeah.
But probably after a while, you kind of wanted to throw it like a snowball too, maybe.
Well, I said, I'm going to put some history back, and there's a lot of people who won't even know, but I'm sure that Rob would remember. Do you remember a platform called mypodcast.com?
Oh my, I don't know that I do actually. There's been so many that have come and gone.
There you go.
Right.
So you're a great person and resource to see how this medium has changed from the host side and also from the consumer side.
Mm-hmm.
how do which one do you want to look at first? Because obviously Libsyn's been around for a long time, but now let's start with that side, that there are more and more people in that side of the podcast industry. How has that changed? And you've been with different companies. How is it then and how is it now?
Well, not a lot really. At the core of this this medium, not a lot has really changed that's fundamental to podcasting. It's still an audio format. It's still a blank canvas of opportunity. It's a relatively level playing field, even though a lot of big companies are trying to make it less level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's, it's always been kind of an opportunity area. People have used podcasting for all sorts of different goals and purposes and objectives, and that's one of the big things that I tell everybody that's interested in this medium is really get clear on what you're trying to accomplish with this medium, because you can do a lot of different things here. You can, and we're starting to see it fully develop now with fiction, but yes, at the core of the medium is really reality-based stories. And if you can tell stories to build connections with human beings, that's the core. If you think of human society and human culture, it goes back to lore and storytelling. That's how humans communicate, and they pass on information to each other. And that's what podcasting has really developed into, is a very diverse, very diverse and accessible medium for content creators, people that want to create things for their companies or for their careers, or to build big businesses like a Joe Rogan that can make hundreds of millions of dollars a year, but to just a normal person that wants to talk about their passions for, comic books or something, so it's the whole spectrum. And that's what the power of this medium is. It's not unlike what we've seen to some degree happen with YouTube, right? Where people have just gotten in there and they just go after their passions. And podcasting is that and more. It actually goes the whole spectrum. So, and now here more recently with premium subscriptions, which is really nothing new to podcasting. It's more kind of institutionalized by support of Apple, right? That they're putting it in the forefront now. Premium is kind of set in the background to some degree, and people have had to be kind of geeky in order to utilize it and to take advantage of it and to build community around it. So it's a medium that just has a lot of potential, and it matches a lot with the trends that we're seeing in the market and the technology sector. You start thinking about the smart agent platforms, like the smart speakers. You start seeing how important audio is starting to become, and how much energy, you're seeing Clubhouse, and you're seeing all these big, social platforms like Facebook and Twitter, and all these big social platforms start to say, I want to have a podcast area too, or a social chat type of platform built into what they're doing. So audio is coming to the forefront of how humans communicate with each other, which has always been the case, and then with their technology and with their computing devices. And so podcasting is kind of its growth has been kind of fueled by that shift that's happening. And podcasting has always been kind of like the tail on the dog, right? That's been wagged by the big trends. Podcasting was impacted by the early growth of social media, and it took the attention away. If you think about when social media started, it started about 2007. Facebook and Twitter and these big platforms, LinkedIn, and there's other ones that contributed to that too. But podcasting started in 2004. It got adopted by Apple in 2005, and then it started to grow a little bit, and then pow, social media hit, and podcasting kind of fell off people's radar from about 2007 to 2010. And then that aligned with an economic collapse as well. So people kind of backed off from things. A lot of the big corporations kind of stopped being involved in, or the big media companies stopped being involved in podcasting for a while. I mean, I went through it, I lived it. And then as the attention to social media has kind of declined here over the last few years because of obvious things that they've been doing that a lot of people don't like, and people have there's not a lot of trust around social media right now. So, it's left the door open for podcasting to come up and start to
would you also say the pandemic has had a great positive impact?
Yeah, it has.
For the podcasting?
Yeah, I think when the pandemic hit, we saw just an explosion of new content because people were not commuting to work anymore. They were at home, they had extra time. They were thinking, maybe I can start a business around this, or I can start a business and I can create a podcast. Now I have time to create a podcast that maybe I've always wanted to do. Because we saw in the first 3 months of the pandemic, we saw like a quadrupling of new shows being created. It went from like 20,000 new shows a month to close to 100,000.
You're kidding me! In the first,
right? Yep. And so now it's kind of leveled off at about 100,000 new shows a month. So it's stayed there.
Wow.
So every month we're getting 100,000 new shows that are being created in the medium.
Smokes. Wow.
But the other truth is that, a lot of the shows that are created, if you see that kind of exponential growth, a lot of the shows don't survive. I mean, they'll create a couple of episodes, they find out that it's actually some work to actually produce a podcast.
Yes.
And it's like, it's not as easy as it seems. And they stop doing it. So you're seeing probably about 40% of those new shows not make it past a couple of episodes. So
it's interesting when people come to me and say, I want to start a podcast. And I say, okay, why are you doing it?
Right. It's a critical question. I believe if you're it's kind of like starting a business. Why are you starting a business? Who are you trying to reach? What's the message? What's the product? What are you doing with your podcast that's going to reach an audience that's going to make it worthwhile for you to do it? Those are just basic things that anybody needs to think about before they start doing pretty much anything, really. What's the reason for doing it?
Would you agree, Rob? And I say this to a lot of people who want to get into this world. I say the barriers to entry are lower than ever before, but it still takes work.
Yeah, it does. It's like anything else, right? If you want to be successful at being a pool cleaner, guess what? You got to hone your skills at cleaning pools. So, there's no easy way to really do anything in life, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would like the get rich quick thing and just, you get a microphone and all of a sudden you're Joe Rogan or something like that. But even Joe Rogan spent 9 years building his show. So, so what does that tell you, right?
Exactly. There are more people coming into the marketplace. What are the, common pitfalls you're hearing that people are falling into? And maybe they haven't changed. I don't know.
It's a lot of common pitfalls, really, because they're based usually on human nature. and also, as you attract a lot of new people, there's a educational curve that has to happen too. There's a lot of, as you're doing this, there's a lot of technical integrations and technical understandings and microphones and internet connections and layouts on web pages and distribution and RSS feeds and all the stuff that you have to learn about, right? And you have to get a grasp of it in your head so you can actually get in and know what to do and how to do it. And what are the best practices of actually launching a podcast? How do you do that? What are the significant listening platforms that you need to be in? Do you want to build a revenue-based podcast that's advertising? Well, there's a different strategy for that than it is if you're just trying to build a reputation as to build your career or build a reputation in a particular industry. There's a different strategy to that. So, and sometimes it's hard to know. And that's why there's just so many educational initiatives that are going on in the podcasting space. I mean, if you want to learn how to do this, just do a search in Google for start a podcast, right? Or learn how to start a podcast, or, I want to make money from a podcast. How do I do that? And there's there's tons of places out there, but you do need to be careful too. I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot of instruction out there that is less than helpful. So you need to, Clubhouses can be an okay place to learn a little about how to podcast too. So if you happen to be in that platform, you can certainly, you can get some free learnings there, but you can also pay to learn from people that are experts. And then I spend a lot of time training people and helping people too, and I don't typically charge for that myself. So
there you go. You're a true server.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned earlier on was the entry of big companies into the world of podcasts. What are your thoughts on it? Is it been a good thing, not a good thing? And what do you feel about that? Because I know when you started and I started, the big boys didn't even consider podcasting. It was hard to get them to pay attention, but now they're on board and then some.
Well, I think it depends on who you're talking about. I mean, the big media companies have been in and out of podcasting a couple of times now over the 16 years of the medium in a general sense. So if you're talking about media companies, ones that are companies that are specifically focused on creating content, right? Versus the distribution companies like a Spotify or a Pandora or a Google or some of these folks that have come into the medium more recently. Apple was they were the first big company to support podcasting, but that was more as a content add-on to their music and TV and movie offerings that they did in iTunes. So it was. And that was what I did at Microsoft as well. When they added podcasts to the Zune platform, that was an add-on to the Zune music platform. So music and podcasting, there's a long history of it riding together. I mean, it started in iTunes, and that was primarily a music platform. And then Zune, primarily a music platform that added podcasts. And so you're seeing Spotify, you're seeing Pandora, and guess what? Those are primarily music platforms that have added podcasts. So, and then you see Amazon Music adding podcasts, and now you see Samsung Music adding podcasts, and there's more that are coming too. And there's music platforms out of the huge country of India, that has 1.3 billion people that have recently added. There's a couple of music streaming platforms over there that have a combined total of over 300 million users that have just been dumped into the podcasting medium over the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing a lot of shows saw a big spike in their listenership. Shows that are created in the U.S. that are getting listened to in India. So the global expansion of podcasting and the consumption of podcasting around the world has just been growing tremendously over the last probably 4 to 5 years. And it's, it's going to keep spreading too. It's huge in South America. It's starting to really grow and develop in Africa. It's definitely growing and developing in Asia and in Europe too. It's been growing for many years down in Australia. It has one of the highest per capita consumption areas in the world down there for podcasting. Wow. Same with Canada. Canada has actually a higher per capita consumption of podcasting than the U.S. has.
Good to know.
Yeah. So
very good to know.
Yeah. So things are expanding on an international basis too. And, a lot of us here in the U.S. get kind of centric on what's happening in the U.S., but this is a global medium, and the reach of this medium is who knows? It may reach Mars one day. Who knows? If Mr. Elon Musk has his way.
Has his way, I'm sure he'll find a way, right? He'll find a way. I've got one of the great supporters of the Dr. Vibe Show, Nicole Waldron, saying, "How can you pick the right portal to host your podcast?" And I guess Rob's not going to try to be biased here.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah, there's plenty of great podcast hosts out there. I mean, Libsyn is one of them. Libsyn was the first one to ever exist. It started in 2004. But there's a bunch of them out there that are good too. So just look through the list of options, look at their features, look at their pricing, look at their plans, and find the one that's best for you and one that resonates with you as well. You know, their brand, their reputation, their personalities that they have, the feature set, and the model. You know, like some of the platforms support live streaming, some of them are focused primarily on just the distribution side. Some are strong around monetization and advertising, and others, you know, so figure out what you're trying to do with your show first, and then go find your technology provider or your host, and match that up and get the best deal for yourself. You know, a lot of the hosting platforms will have coupon codes that you can get that can get you, you know, a month or two off, so you can get it set up, get the podcast set up first before you start paying for it. So,
nice.
You know, Libsyn has that as well.
Oh, she's got questions. So does your company host video and audio podcasts?
Yes. There's only a couple of podcast hosts left that still host video and audio as podcasts. And I think that's a big distinction that I need to emphasize, is that podcasting started as an audio and video medium.
Yes.
Now, granted, when YouTube launched back in 2006, 2007, as part of the social media expansion, a lot of podcast creators that were doing video started putting their stuff over there. I don't consider that to be a video podcast. I consider that to be YouTube, you know, distribution of your video, right? Mm-hmm. So, but there is the opportunity on Libsyn and Blueberry, I think, are the two primary ones that are still supporting video, that you can create an RSS feed and get into Apple Podcasts as a video file. So it's not just exclusive just to audio. And actually, when this medium started, it actually even supported PDF files.
That's right. Exactly.
And we still do support PDF files. So if you want to make like a supporting document with your episode, you can publish that right along with your audio or video file.
And time is running out fast, but I did say to Rob before we went live, I've invited him to come back maybe later on the year.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, that'd be great. A few things. I'll give you something interesting that happened a little while ago. I went on Clubhouse, and there was a lady who has legitimately made a lot of money in podcasting. And I said to her, you know what? When I got into this, I didn't think about making money. She goes, no, when I got in, I wanted to make money with this. So what thought process can you share with our audience who want to make money at podcasting?
Well, I think the big thing to think about with that is that money usually rides along with audience in this medium. So if you're talking about advertising is paid for based on being able to reach potential customers, right? So just the fundamentals of that. And if you look at premium subscription, that's also a game of numbers too. You have to get listeners that are willing to pay a subscription fee. So one of the things that you might think about in the early days of what you're doing with your podcast is start thinking about formulating a show that adds value, that will grow an audience, right? Because the larger the audience you grow, the more revenue that you have the potential of making. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to come up with a show concept or a show theme that aligns with your passions, which is key, but also aligns with small businesses or medium-sized businesses that are out there that are looking to reach new customers. And so if you can blend those two concepts together, you can actually sometimes start making revenue from your show at smaller audience levels, because some of these smaller companies or startups are looking to reach niche audiences. And if you can reach a niche audience, then you can put together like a pitch document and present it to a brand and say, our demographics, and maybe do, once you've built, let's say 1,000 people listening to your show, do a little research study on those, do like a survey of them to learn a little bit more about them. What's their Are they male, female? What's their age range? What's their income level? What's their professional level? And that gives you some information that you can take to a potential sponsor and say, this is the composition of my audience. How does that match with your outreach and your customer acquisition strategy for your own company? And maybe we have a match here, and maybe we can work together to do a campaign or do a couple months kind of host read or endorsement or something like that in my show for a couple $100 an episode or something like that. It doesn't have to be a big complicated thing, but that's one option. And the other option is just build a solid base of listeners and then start to work with the premium stuff. And what sometimes people are doing is they're creating like bonus episodes, or they're monetizing their back catalog if the back catalog has value. And I think one of the things you have to evaluate is the information that you're sharing in your podcast kind of capable of driving value to audiences beyond just the week that it's put out.
The right? evergreen content.
Right. So if you can maintain downloads and people listening to your episodes beyond just the week that it's published, or 2 weeks that it's published, if you keep getting downloads, then you're starting to build a business potentially that has maybe potential residual income. And that's when some podcasters start to move into dynamic ad insertion technologies, which basically enables you to maybe pre-record a sponsor endorsement that you can dynamically insert into all your archives. And be able to monetize all your old episodes, not just your most recent episodes.
Oh, I've done 2,000.
Have you? Awesome.
Oh, yeah. So that is part of my game plan in the near future to monetize, because a lot of them are evergreen content. I know. Can we get 2 more minutes out of you, Rob?
Sure.
Okay. I would be remiss, first of all, if I didn't have you promote one of the great things you've been involved in for a long time, the new media show.
Right. Okay. Well,
if you just want to share a bit about that.
Yeah, it's a show that I've been doing with Todd Cochran, who's the CEO of Blueberry, which is another podcast hosting platform. His platform primarily works with WordPress, and he has this PowerPress plugin. Clearly a competitor to Libsyn and all this stuff, but he and I have been doing this show together for 10 years.
You know what? That's very unique in let alone most industries. 2 competitors. Right. That get on every week. Like, how did that show start?
Well, it started because both of us were content creators, and
right.
we worked together. I was doing a show. Todd does a show too. It's called the Geek News Central podcast, and he's been doing that for 15, 16 years. And he's had the same sponsor of his show, GoDaddy, for the whole life of his show.
You are kidding
over
me.
15 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Every week, GoDaddy is a sponsor of that show, and he's really supported that, or GoDaddy has really been a strong supporter of what Todd's been doing, and so he started out doing it. I started out doing a podcast radio show too. So we started doing this show back when we were just content creators. That was actually even, that was kind of a little bit before he actually started his company, and actually I helped him a little bit in the early days. Kind of move in that direction to some degree. And that was before I was working for any competitor too. So we were friends way before we were working on competing platforms. We just kept it going, right? It's the same thing with podcasting. It's like every week you just, pull up the microphone and do a show. And over time that show evolved into really more of a podcast about the evolution and the development of the podcasting industry. But we also talked about video. Like I've had Gage on, the founder of StreamYard, has been on the new media show talking about the development of StreamYard. And then he, over the last 3 months, he actually sold out to a bigger company for like $230 million.
Yeah.
He's a very rich young man right now.
Yes.
He's in his 20s, and he sold his company for $230 million. What does that tell you? I don't know how much he got, but I'm sure he's doing quite well. I don't think he's complaining.
No, I don't think he's complaining. But no. that was a power move.
Right. So I mean, it was good timing. He built that company, and he's done very, very well with it. But that's just an example. So we've been trying to help podcasters create their shows, give them tips about what's going on behind the scenes with new entrants to the medium, bringing on people like we had the the guys that created Google Podcasts on the show in the very early days, just prior to them launching. And then have guys on from Pandora, and just recently I had a guy on that has been working at Apple for a long time. So things like that. So if you want to learn about the podcasting medium and what's happening in the latest and greatest in the news and things like that, we try and explain it. That's a terrific show for that.
Yeah, it's a highly recommended. It's a great show, a consistent, good audience, and people come with great questions and also with great information, because both of them don't know everything, and a lot of things that
that's right.
So it's a great community that they have built. So Rob, again, thank you. If people want to get in touch with Rob, go to the Libsyn website. Also, he has his own website.
Right.
Any final? Oh, actually, one last thing I want to ask you about diversity in podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
You have a valued experience. Are you seeing more diversity in the podcast?
Massively more.
Good.
More diversity in the podcasting medium. And I know, my work at the Podcast Academy is also symbolic of that as well. We've really shifted that organization to be very much focused on making sure that every aspect of this medium gets highlighted, and opportunity is given to, and focus is given. I mean, it was a massive undertaking in the organization to bring on more board members that are representative of that really the cross culture, race, gender, all that stuff of the medium. That's just, it's actually over indexing. I think podcasting is really taken things to a whole nother level, compared to the other mediums. It can only get better. It can only expand. I mean, we definitely want more diverse voices in the medium. It's going to attract more listeners that are more diverse too. And so there's a magnetic kind of component to that too, right? You have the North and South pole of that, right? That are attracted to each other. And that's what's been very, very powerful about this podcasting medium, is it is open to everyone.
Wonderful. Well, great final words. And Nicole is saying here, this needs a master class. Well, just go. The master, they're every week on the new media show. They do the master classes, and they're now on Clubhouse also. And just so if you can give a quick plug, I see that Libsyn is now going to be doing some weekly stuff. You've created your own club
on Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I created a club. It's called Libsyn Pod.
Libsyn Pod. Yep.
And on May 4th.
I just joined it.
On May 4th, Elsie Escobar and I are going to be running the first Q&A session at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to, pepper us with the questions.
I know, and people can't really see it on the screen because there's too much light here if I put it, but it is, they can't see because of light, but it does exist. I've joined the club. There's about 40 members already, but yes, Tuesday, May the 4th at 3 p.m. Best podcasting, best practices, Q&A. I would fully recommend, if you're into podcasting, join that club.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
No problem. And continued blessings on what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing in the podcasting field.
Well, I wish you the most luck as well, and keep doing the fantastic work that you're doing. So thank you.
Appreciated. It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Best Podcast News Award. 2018 Best Innovation, or not Best Innovation Award given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, once a month, I host the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dads Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I'm also the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative. And it is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing everything, or doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. So I'd like to say thank you for everyone who watched live or watching on the replay live. I can't watch the replay. I watch the replay are also going to be listening to the replay live via audio. As always, I'd like to thank Nicole for jumping on this epic conversation today. And as always, I'd like to say this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. God bless, peace to all, keep the faith, and remember, love, faith, and respect. And also, remember to give yourselves grace. Bye-bye, everybody. God bless.